Good morning and welcome, Patriot Radio News Hour. I'm Joe Jaquint, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group, and our toll-free number, 800-951-0592, the website at allamericangold.com, and welcome to Thursday. Just another day of complete insanity. Everything's down today. Janet Yellen is talking today, which is having an adverse effect on a lot of things. I don't know why. She's never right about anything. We probably should just, whatever she says, we should probably do the opposite. But we had a boatload of data out from retail sales to industrial production, jobless claims, and very much a continuation. The Fed's in trouble here. Jeffrey Gundlach yesterday, we talked about him talking about problems in the credit markets, and the data today, not helpful. We'll get to that in a minute. But Jason, everything's down. Oil's down. Gold's down. The Dow, the S&P, the NASDAQ's down. There's talk now of China needing to devalue their currency. Japan's trying to stave off their currency decline. Germany is worried about a Lehman Brothers moment. The hits just keep on coming. Yeah, well, the economic state of the planet is very shaky as it is, Joe, and it really hasn't really stopped since 2008. It's just been in a holding pattern, right? So now everything's coming in for a landing, and everybody's trying to figure out if there's a spot on the runway for them. Yeah, and you bring up, and the reason why, and Jason really hits it here, it hasn't changed since 2008, but a lot of people say, oh no, it's changed a lot. Right, look at the Dow. The Dow, not only did the Dow stabilize, it came roaring back. I mean, we went all the way to 37,000, right? And the illusion that things got better. Of course, anybody that's listened to this show, and we didn't even know, here's the part that is frustrating, is we didn't even know how much money they really used to cover up what happened in 2008. Matter of fact, we didn't find out till this year with Freedom of Information Act request. We are supposed to know this information in 2012. So in 2010, Freedom of Information Acts were requested of the Federal Reserve. And by law, the Federal Reserve, and I don't know why they were even allowed to do this, but apparently they were allowed to hide things from us for 2 years. That's how it's written. And then Freedom of Information Act request was made. The Fed went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court decided with the Fed that it was too dangerous for us to know what they really had done. And to come out and find out that I mean, almost $30 trillion was spent by the Federal Reserve covering things up. And again, remember, we had this long period, as Jason talked about, where everything, hadn't been great, right? Go back to the second term of Obama, go back to the first term of Trump. Remember, we had a couple of quarters. Remember that couple of quarters where GDP got to 3%, but by and large, GDP was right around 2%. And of course, they were saying there was no inflation, which obviously there was, but they like to cover things up. But now the reason why it's different is this is the first time in what's almost 20 years, not quite 20 years, about 18 years, where the Federal Reserve is on this huge tightening cycle. We had a brief moment with Janet Yellen. Remember, they raised interest rates a couple of times. We're reducing their balance sheet. I think that whole thing lasted about 6 months, Jason. But this time, this is going on and on and on. And it's really wreaking havoc because the problem is half of the data tells you to stop raising rates. And then the other half of the data tells you got to keep raising rates. That's right. We've said it since this inflation came roaring in 2021 that the Fed's in a
catch-22. You know, there's two bad things. Inflation, you raise the rates to stop the inflation, but then you have a recession coming in, which looks more like a depression, and you have to lower rates and print money to help with that. And you can't do both at the same time, Joe. And I think that's what they're attempting to do, is some sort of quasi both at the same time, because they don't really tell you where the money's going. If they're printing money and giving it to somebody, we're not going to know about it, are we?
Yeah, and that's the thing. What do we know? What don't we know? But we did get some, like I said, economic data out. Here's the conflicting part. We had manufacturing activity in Philadelphia and New York, both in contraction. Now I don't think that's a surprise. That we've known that the manufacturing side of things has been weak. Then we got jobless claims, and this has really been perplexing, because we were talking about how jobless claims, remember, they were going up every week, got right near that 270,000, which is kind of one of those numbers where you start to get worried. And then miraculously, Jason, over the last, 3, 4, 5 weeks, jobless claims have come right back down. Matter of fact, today, an even lower number, 213,000, and that was seasonally adjusted. I actually found the unseasoned number, and believe it or not, it's the lowest unseasoned number in jobless claims that we've had in decades. Very, very problematic. When we get back, we're going to finish with that and talk retail sales, which also was disappointing. Don't touch that dial. 800-951-0592. Right now, gold's down 30. Silver's down 40. The Dow's down almost a couple of hundred. The Nasdaq's down a couple of hundred. The S&P's down 40. I mean, crude oil's down 3. The very, very complicated scenario is playing out. It's pretty reminiscent of Jason and I, again, talking about, and we've been talking about this for, a good year and a half at least, about how the Fed has put itself in this corner, whether it's on accident or on purpose, really doesn't matter, where damned if they do, damned if they don't, right? Damned if they do, right? You raise rates, stock market gets crushed, the economy goes into recession and I think probably depression. Or the other scenario, damned if they don't. Hey, we don't fight inflation, and everything that it costs more and more and more and more, and then people continue to be able to afford less and less and less. But the real net effect is millions of Americans are going to fall back into, millions of Americans are going to fall into poverty. That middle class shrinkage is picking up, and today is a great example of just that. So industrial production says recession. Right? Think about it. Housing says recession. Industrial production says recession. Retail sales today. So first, two things happened. First, they took July's number and lowered July's number by almost 0.5%. So a big change in what they said July's number was. August, after the adjustment, the headline number was up 0.3, so really would have been negative. But the problem is the unadjusted numbers aren't very good. The other problem is that when you look at inflation, even with this 0.3 number, it was actually down. In other words, inflation caused all of the increase and more. There was a huge drop in gasoline that should have helped the number. It didn't. When you strip out autos, so there was a big move in autos. So I don't know if maybe some of the automobile companies made some deliveries, but neither here or there. When you exclude autos, which is always what the Fed likes to do, which just tells you autos can skew the number, kind of like aircraft parts and things like that. Sales were down 0.3, which Again, not good because the estimate was supposed to be for a 1/10 increase. Didn't happen. And remember, that's on top of a 4/10 reduction in July, so the number's even worse than that. And then the biggest thing in there is when you looked at what they call the control group. This is the thing that the Fed likes to use for inflation. And, Jason, that number was not good either. So this tells the Fed, right, things are slowing down, don't raise rates. So we had two things that said don't raise rates, industrial production, retail sales. But then jobless claims, like I said, has now fallen down to 213,000. And if you use the unadjusted number, it was the lowest unadjusted number in decades in this report, which tells the Fed what? Keep raising rates.
Yeah, and I've said this many times recently, and people need to understand this when it comes to a central bank. To be so-called given that power for the government of whatever country your central bank is in, for you to exist, you cannot have inflation. You can't have Weimar Germany, Joe, and pretend that your central bank is going to exist past that. So they have to, no matter what happens, no matter how bad the situation gets or how it appears in the storyline, they have to attempt or look like they're going to fight the inflation above all else. Because if we go to the gas station and we have $11 a gallon gas, people are going to be storming to Washington, D.C., and then they might just get educated enough and know what we know, Joe, which is they should have got rid of that central bank a long time ago.
Yeah, and again, the thing about all of this is really going to be none of the things we just talked about. It really has to do with all the things we can't see. And this is when you've got to go to the guys that have that inside information. That's why we talk about Jeffrey Gundlach all the time, because at Doubletree, no one has when it comes to credit markets, all the major players go to that guy, right? The average guy can't do anything with Gundlach. He is the bond king. He has the visibility to this all. Remember, yesterday we told you those markets, those are the warning. That's the check engine light on your car. And not only is the engine light on, it's been on. And yesterday, Gundlach was saying, the engine light's been on. Now all of a sudden, the car's making a weird noise on top of the fact that the engine light's been on, and essentially saying, hey, get ready. This thing's getting ready to implode because the central bank is raising rates, and they're not taking long enough to see what the real effects on the credit markets are. And, Jason, they're going to blow this thing up. That's kind of the shortened version of what he said yesterday.
Right, and coming from the banker, let's just go with the Fed's standpoint, and these are private corporate interests that run and own that bank. And no matter what the situation is, there's always a situation ripe for profit. So if you have a situation where you should be printing money and dropping rates to zero at the same time you have inflation, which means you have to raise the rates, there's going to be a crashing and burning situation. But whatever the Great Reset or wherever we're headed, Joe, they're the ones that get to make the decisions to do whatever they're going to do, and they're going to be the ones that can profit off of whatever chaos happens. This is why you got to try to educate yourself on what's going on. Listen to a show like this and make wise decisions to protect yourself, Joe.
Yeah, and now it's even, this is just incredible. It's starting to affect our troops here at home. The problem is food inflation, and we talked about this, the biggest jump in food prices since the 70s. And obviously, if we calculated it like we did in the 70s, probably the biggest jump in food prices ever. Think about that. That's a fact. The largest increase in food prices ever. They're willing to admit that food prices year over year are up like 11 or 12%. And again, remember how they calculate it. Obviously, a good rule of thumb is just double the number, right? Well, now they're saying that the index for food is starting to have an effect on the troops, and saying that especially the enlisted members of the U.S. military, Jason, don't have enough money to buy food for their families, and they're now saying that they need to put our troops on food stamps. I'm not kidding.
Oh, well, I mean, I thought active duty, a lot of those expenses were paid for. I know when you go to basic training, you're not buying food, but I mean, I guess I don't know exactly how.
Problem, I mean, again, right? Maybe the guy that's in, hey, he's going to get breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but his wife doesn't get breakfast, lunch, and dinner. His kids don't get breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? And now the Army's saying that it's becoming a significant problem, and that troops of all ranks have been seeking assistance and advice through the Army Financial Readiness Program. And they're saying now the solution may be that they need to start issuing food stamps to our troops. And again, this just highlights how bad the problem really is.
I guess they could just add that to the military budget. How's that? They don't seem to decrease the military budget very often, Joe.
Well, you know what's so funny is they brought it up. Why is it? And again, we continue to spend incredible amounts, disgusting amounts on our military, and obviously with all the weapons we've been sending you to Ukraine, right? Hey, we gotta make more of them because if we give it all to Ukraine, then we don't have any for ourselves. And people are asking the question, why isn't a pay increase in the works with all of that money? But they're saying that 24%. So think about, let's call it round up, 25%. 1 in 4 enlisted personnel are what they're calling experiencing food insecurity right now. That's just unacceptable.
Yeah, this sure smells like they just want to keep spending money, Joe, because once again, it is a Ponzi scheme, and even though they've had to drop the rates to keep the inflation down, they have to keep the money supply high if they don't want it to crash. This is why I feel like it's going to be a timed event. I just don't know what their timing is. Is it the next election cycle, the president, or is it going to happen in October, or is it going to be a little bit of both? Kind of a stair-stepping down, kind of a crash and thud, downward step at a time. We don't know, Joe, but it's going to happen. Things are when the markets went down for the Depression, 1929, when the crash happened. The markets, the S&P, for example, didn't come back for 25 years. And in 1968, when all these countries started repatriating their gold because they didn't trust the dollar was being printed honestly, the S&P went down. It didn't come back for 27 years. No, I reversed it. 27 years from 1929, 25 years from 68 to 93. We're heading for one of those, Joe. I'm convinced that the markets will start going down, and it's going to be a generation before we recover that thing. So I've never liked the markets, Joe. It's just a scary place to be unless you know exactly what companies you're investing in.
Exactly right. And this is a situation. Real quick, the rail strike has been averted. Once again, the headlines are coming out. The deal includes a 24% across-the-board pay increase for all railroad workers of all unions. Jason, think about this. Remember, we gave a 25% increase for people in food stamps, and now they're saying, hey, you know what, the military needs to go on food stamps. It's not enough. Rail worker pay up 25%. Again, this is huge, huge inflationary type numbers. This isn't, normally, right, you get a 3% raise and you're like, oh, well, I feel lucky. Oh, I got a 5% raise. That was like, oh, look, that's incredible. 24% is the numbers that we're talking about. So again, this is another number, right? This forces the Fed, another one of these things, and we talked about it in the last jobs. Remember the last jobs report? When I said this is horrible because the wage number was so hot that it was going to cause the Fed to have to raise rates even higher. Jason, this is more of the same today.
Agreed, Joe, agreed. And they're going to raise the rates, is it next week, I think, right? They're going to do it again next week.
Yeah, Wednesday, we're going to get 75 basis points, which is going to put the rate between 3 and 3.25%. Ray Dalio, we've been talking about him the last couple of days. He has said at 4.5%, so we're going to be at 3 for all practical purposes, 3 on Wednesday. I have already said we're going to be between 4 and 4.25 by the end of the year. Ray Dalio is like, listen, at 4.5%, just take 25% off the equity markets as a starting point.
That's very reasonable. What kind of time frame though? How fast would it go, Joe?
Well, again, so he's thinking we're going to be at at that 4.5 number at the beginning of 2023. So 4 at the end of the year, the next Fed meeting, he thinks the first Fed meeting of 2023, we're going to see 4.5%, and he thinks the equity markets by the first 6 weeks of 2023 between now and then are going to lose another 25%. So make sure you have your portfolios ready for that. This is not the same old, same old. This is nothing like the same old, same old. The bottom line here is this is an ultra uber high interest rate environment, and your portfolio better match it or it's going to be a rough ride. Patriot Radio News Hour will be back after the break. 800-951-0592, and I just received a email here. We haven't done one of these in a long time here. This is the Stone Cold lead pipe lock of the week, lock of the month. This is an incredible opportunity. I've got 100 of each. I've got $100 $20 Liberties, $100 $20 Saints. These are going to be AU, which is almost uncirculated. This is, the right before a coin could get graded. My guess is a lot of these coins probably could get graded, but the difference in the price doesn't make it, because, getting coins graded now costs a fortune. I'll just read to you what they sent me about this particular deal. So I've got 100 of each, 100 AU $20 Liberties, 100 AU $20 Saints. And again, these are the nicest of the nice before they get put in their plastic cases. And here's what they refer to them at here. These are solid AU coins. So these aren't, hey, they're nice, I don't know, borderline. No, solid AU coins. And this is the part I like the best. A really good mix of dates. So a lot of times, and Jason will tell you this, especially like on the Liberties, when you start to get into the nicer ones, you usually get like 1900, 1907s, right? You get a lot of those. So it's nice to know you're also going to get a good mix of dates, but it's all about price. So right now, AU Liberties and Saints on my website are 2107. I've got the 100 of each, 1995. Jason, and I don't even know the last time just a regular 20 was below $2,000. I know this for a fact. We have not had an AU 20 below $2,000 for years.
Yeah, that's a great price. I don't even. There's not really a whole lot to say than what you just said. This is a great way to come in and get one of these pre-33 gold coins that we specialize in. The St. Gaudens, obviously that was the Teddy Roosevelt one. Got St. Gaudens. He got Gaudens to come in and make these coins to make the coins look more attractive, like what Teddy Roosevelt thought the European coins looked. And that's why the change, all the old gold, whether it be St. Gaudens or the Liberty design, it's the same coin, same weight, same exact gold content. But in 1907 to 1933, it was the St. Gaudens. Obviously, when gold was made to be confiscated, a lot of the St. Gaudens were sitting in the bank. So there's not as many years of these that were made. A lot of them got melted down. So there's there's a lot to having one of these, and especially at this price, Joe. That's a great way to get in.
It's all about price. This is insanity here. Obviously, they've got some inventory they want to get rid of. They call us. They reach out to us. They know we're on the air right now. This is what they want to sell. This is what we're going to sell. You can mix and match. You want 5 of each. If you want all libs, if you want all saints, it doesn't matter. All of these are pre-1933. The Liberties, that's the side profile of Lady Liberty's face. 1866 to 1907, and according to this, hey, he's got a lot of dates. So to get AU quality coins, think about this. All of the Liberties are over 115 years old. Some of them, you're talking about over 150 years old, and these things are going to be, they're not going to be new, but they're going to look really, really nice. And then, obviously, the St. Gaudens, that's what the Silver Eagle design comes from. That's the full-bodied Lady Liberty, as Jason said. Teddy Roosevelt wanted the coin to be what he thought was more majestic looking because America was now a superpower. And again, they're called the St. Gaudens because the artist Augustus St. Gaudens is the one who designed it. And he just happened to die right before the coins were going to be released to the public, so they named it after him, Jason.
That's correct. And I think he designed one of the Indian designs, too, if I'm
He did.
Correct.
He designed the $10 Indian as well. So the Indians were the fractional gold coins that went with the Saints. Augustus St. Gaudens designed the female version, the $10 Indian. And then Bella Pratt, she did the $5 and the $2.50. Those were the male Indians where they carved into the coins. And then they thought those coins had the plague. In 1916, that was the last year they minted Indians until like 1925.
That's right. Yep. So lots of history in these coins too, which is really cool. To get it at a affordable price versus the spot price of gold, and we can't handle. It's not Joe's and I. It's not our fault that the premiums on this stuff has gotten very heavy. But it should not scare you off to buy this stuff. If there's a heavy premium, that means somebody is wanting to buy it, and they're wanting you, the small guy, not to buy it. So to me, Joe, when I started buying gold and silver, I never worried about the price. Of course, I wanted to make sure I didn't get ripped off, but I just knew that I was putting my money into a safe savings, and that I was going to be there when I need it. So this is lowest price above spot I think we've had in a while.
Yeah, and it's $112 off the regular price. It's cheaper than our circulateds. All of this, it just makes it a great opportunity to buy on the dips, from the dips, as I like to say. Silver, I know I haven't been running a lot of silver, and silver's been showing strength. Even today, silver's now only down like 30 cents. It's staying above this $19. Looks like it wants to go higher. Apparently, the death of the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth, has caused a huge run on silver, because I think the British have her on the coin. I think the Canadians have her on the coin. The Australians have her on the coin. So people have been buying these coins, obviously commemorating her death. And all the mints out there are saying, hey, listen, she's going to be on the coin next year, the year, right? She's going to still be on the coin. But, again, people feeling pretty nostalgic.
That's interesting because before Queen Elizabeth, it was King, and I always forget the names of the kings, but it was not her until she took over the monarchy. So they should be changing to a portrait of King Charles on these coins here.
Charles, right. And they're saying that they're not going to. We'll see. But what it's done is, and Jason can tell you every day, it's never good when wholesalers are emailing their dealers trying to buy silver from us. It's supposed to work the other way around. So anyway, there's silver out there. The prices are what they are. These states, so this is the buy of the week, probably the buy of the month, maybe the buy of the year. 800-951-0592. Jason and I are coming right back. 800-951-0592. Keep buying here. Listen, when it turns, it's going to be so fast. Like I said yesterday, what was the number that was out yesterday? Oh, the Tuesday, the inflation number. Had that inflation number been what Wall Street was promising us, gold would probably be up $100 at least, maybe more. When the Fed breaks this thing, that's when you're going to see the slingshot happen. So take advantage here today. This is an incredible opportunity to buy AU quality 20s, Liberties and Saints at $1,995. You're essentially buying it like gold's like $1,575. I mean, it's $1,670 right now. So you're buying it with a lot of room here. Take advantage of it. 800-951-0592. And here's another one of these signs, right? And the Fed is trapped here. Half the data says you got to keep raising rates. The other half says, what are you doing? You're just gonna cause a horrible crash. Redfin, one of the big online mortgage companies. The average mortgage payment since the beginning of the year. This is incredible, Jason. The average monthly mortgage payment up 38.5%. And I've got bad news. Rates have shot up in the last week. So it's going to be even more than that now. But think about this. The average mortgage payment up 40% since the beginning of the year. I just checked in on the U.S. bond market. The 1-year note is now yielding 4%. The 10-year note, right, is at 3.45%. Jason, it just keeps going higher. And, of course, on Wednesday, we're going to get another 3 quarters. Obviously, now here's the problem. 6 weeks from Wednesday, because of the data that we're seeing, we know they're hiking again. The question's going to be, I'm saying 50 basis points because that's what they've been saying. Is it going to be another 75? Could it be 25? I don't know. But I get the feeling it's going to be 50, and I think that's when you start seeing gold start rising when they come off. Okay, they've been doing 75, 75, 70. Well, now it's 50, and I think they're going to go 50, 50, and then it's going to be 25, 25, and then it's going to be, oh, no, we broke it all, and it'll be all chaos after that, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's a similar situation to the 70s, but it's a little different because we're further down the road now. In the 70s, there was a lot of gloom and doom in the 70s. You know, the Vietnam War had just ended early in the decade, and the inflation came roaring in. And buying homes with these astronomically high interest rates made it very unaffordable for a lot of people. So when Reagan came in and everyone thought he was just such a miracle, well, what happened was they finally jumped on top of the inflation. They brought those rates down to reasonable levels. And there was all this big spending going on. You know, the Reagan years was a lot of spending. You know, it's like, well, the way to get out of this and make everybody happy is let's just spend a lot of money. I don't know if on the back end of this, being similar to the 70s, Joe, if there's going to be an ability to make a big spending plunge after this, to have a 1980s sort of spending binge that everyone's going to be happy about. I don't think they can do it this time. How long is this going to last, right, Joe?
Yeah, and that's the problem. See, and this is where I'm at. I think the Fed raises till they break it because I don't think they have a choice. The problem is the go-to card has been since 1971. It's the same card. Okay, we broke it. Everybody print more money, right? Bring rates back down to zero. Quantitative easing. The government goes out and spends record amounts of money. That's always been the playbook. But because of inflation, Jason, I don't think they can do that playbook again.
Well, it's a Ponzi scheme. So we must understand for it to continue, it has those dollars, whether it be treasuries or physical dollars, digital, whatever it is, has to be stuffed somewhere. And it doesn't look like people don't want to stuff them. There's nowhere to stuff them anymore. You can't have what happened in the 80s because, I mean, look at Japan. They loved treasuries, man. They became the maker of all goods and services. Everything was made in Japan. People seem to forget it wasn't made in China. It was made in Japan. And then they just shifted it to China. So we don't have places to stuff bags of Federal Reserve notes, Joe. That's why it's different this time. We have the inflation of the 70s, and where are they going to stuff this Ponzi scheme money? It's going to break.
To Jason's point, let's just say I'm right. Hey, we can't go to that trick. Well, then the house of cards collapses, right? Because you can't support the debt levels, period. Especially, think about this. Redfin is now saying that home buying activity has already fallen 40% from the beginning of the year. Oh, by the way, the average mortgage payment is up 40%, and obviously it's getting worse. Let's face it, because rates are still rising. I mean, housing down 50, 60, 70%. I mean, it's unconscionable to think about that level of inactivity in one of the most the biggest debt market that we have. And to Jason's point, it's one of two things. Right? It's either keep the Ponzi scheme going, throw all this money at it, run away inflation, reactivate, send everything back to zero, blow up the Fed's balance sheet to $20 trillion, the U.S. debt goes to $50 or $60 trillion, houses are $1 million, cars are $150,000, rent's $3,000 for a one bedroom. If you're in New York, it's $10,000 for a one bedroom, or reset, right, Jason?
Right. One of the reasons that Weimar Republic, Germany, was such a disastrous hyperinflation situation, they didn't have the world reserve currency, and there was nowhere else to stuff their money. This is what happens to all currencies when there's nowhere else to put it. We're headed for that. Nobody wants Federal Reserve notes, or they're going to come up with a trick, Joe, or they're going to try to stuff it. They're going to make countries want to take that money. That means some kind of worldwide emergency, doesn't it?
That means, yeah. Call 911. How much gold do you have in your portfolio? 800-951-0592. Final segment coming up. 800-951-0592. Today's special. I'll get it online today. Give me a few minutes here during the long break at the top of the hour. I'll get her done. But we have almost uncirculated AU $20 Liberties and $20 Saints. So you can mix and match. You can go all Libs. You can go all Saints. This is all pre-1933 U.S. gold. But we're talking about price here because that's really what matters. They're at $19.95. Just to give you perspective here, that is $112 a coin off. They're $35 below a really nice, and you guys buy from us, you know, we carry really nice product. Even our circulated gold is really nice, but it's $35 below even that price, Jason. It's the first time since COVID that AU20s have been below $2,000, maybe any 20. I think once here or there for a day, maybe a circulated 20 was $19.95, maybe. But never an AU here. This is a huge, huge opportunity here. 1995 Liberties and Saints. You pick it. 800-951-0592, and it's been just a treacherous day because all the data, all the different data, jobless claims says rates got to go way higher. The railroad strike being averted, a 24% run, a 25% increase in wages, says rates got to go way higher. Retail sales says, man, rates are inflation's starting to hurt the consumer. The retail sales, there's no growth. Outside of anomaly in autos, retail sales were not good. They lowered July, which said, hey, don't raise rates, right? Industrial production from New York and Philadelphia said don't raise rates. And Jason, this is the box that we've been talking about.
That's exactly right. And when people start to figure out that things aren't working very well for them, I was watching just local news talking about, people are starting to figure it. We just did a poll, and the poll says that lower income people in Colorado they're having trouble making ends meet. I'm like, Wow, maybe you should have been listening to the show 2 years
the
ago.
U.S. Army just told our troops to go on food stamps. That's what we did today. The U.S. Army saying the troops are calling, asking for assistance. We're telling them to get onto food stamps. I think this is another number we need to watch. This food stamp number, is it starting to grow? And obviously, the answer to that is going to be yes, it is. Things like, remember, Japan now trying to stop its currency from collapsing. Now today, people are talking that China needs to significantly weaken its currency. Jason, these are all factors in all of this. The Dow, the losses now picking up steam here. If gold is any indication, it correlates a lot. Usually when there's big drops in gold, there's big drops in stocks. This could be a big down day. We'll see. Gold's down 30. The Dow's down 200 now. Right now, 30,000 in change, so it's lost 31. I think we're going to see the Dow, unfortunately, in the 20s, Jason, very soon.
Once that starts going, then it can just keep on continuing, right, Joe? And then we'll just see that slide happen. That we could be heading for that October problem we've been talking about.
It's only a couple of weeks away. 800-951-0592.